Sony is taking over Bungie. Good. Bungie is incompetent. The greatest thing Bungie ever achieved was convince people that it was Activision Blizzard's fault that Destiny was bad.
Hello, everybody. Today we have an article that we're going to be sharing with all of you. I've seen some of the details around it, but I have not actually read the article itself. But just so you know, it's probably going to be pretty bad, I would assume.
Yeah, I would assume the same from the video title.
Based off the few things I've seen. Now, from Jason Schreier right here, lots of sad and shocking details in this well-reported story about Bungie's latest cultural crisis by Doug Valentine. One thing behind this year's industry layoffs is that even the most successful live service games can't keep growing forever. This is really interesting considering.
True, but no one wants to admit that. Because the problem with live service games is twofold. We already talked about the first one, the fact that live service games need to be updated pretty much like every 2 weeks, or people leave and you are a failure that's not making enough money. But the reality is, even if you actually are a good live service game, if people are happy, you cannot grow forever. And anything that does not grow forever in the AAA gaming industry, aka the stock market in this case, you can't say that, because that is an abject failure and a stock price reduction.
We have the Game Awards show coming tomorrow, and a big question everyone has is the Game Awards going to talk about the mass layoffs?
Why would the Game Awards care, though?
Although 2023 has been a great year for gaming in terms of us getting wonderful games, it's also been a terrible year for the developers themselves, right? Most notably the ones that have been let go. But let's take a look at this article real quick. Start from the top. Bungie Dev says atmosphere is soul crushing amid layoffs, cuts, and fear of total Sony takeover. The Destiny 2 marathon.
Yeah, exactly as it should be. What else do you honestly expect?
Developer may not be able to cling to the last of its independence forever. All right, from Rebecca Valentine here. 1 month after a major round of layoffs impacted roughly 100 Bungie employees of 1,200, those remaining at Destiny developers says the cuts, as well as other cost-cutting measures, came alongside an apparent scramble by studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. As it currently stands,
they can't avoid it. Sony did not buy Bungie because Sony thought that Bungie's doing good. This is how the world works. If a multi-billion-dollar company is buying something that's worth money, they're not buying it, most likely, if it's already worth in the billions, by the way. They're not buying an already established company because they think that Bungie's doing so good. No, they're buying it because they're looking at Bungie and saying, wow, this is sheer incompetency. We can buy it and make this perform 5 times better than they are making it perform. I mean, admittedly, though, Xbox is definitely regretting buying Bethesda at this point. But you know, usually that is the exact way that people are thinking.
Bungie is, on paper, a fully independent subsidiary of Sony, but its board of directors has been
fully independent subsidiary? Are you kidding me? These words don't even work in the same sentence. You can never be fully independent while being a subsidiary. A subsidiary means that you are directly under someone. That means that you're just a sister company of something, and something can always make you do whatever it wants because it owns you. There's no such thing as fully independent.
Divided since the takeover in July of 2022. Among its current members are PlayStation Studios head Herman Hulse, Sony Senior VP Eric Lempel, Bungie co-founder Jason Jones, Bungie CTO Luis Villegas, and Bungie CEO Pete Parsons. Probably killed some of those names, by the way. The board as a whole is a split between Sony and Bungie representatives, with Parsons serving as a tiebreaker.
The board doesn't matter in this case. Because Sony has the ability to replace anyone on the board. Sony has the ability to just get rid of the board. Sony has the ability to not care even if the board unanimously is against anything that Sony does. The board doesn't have any doesn't have actually any real power in this conversation, honestly. I don't even know why that should be necessary. Boards typically in companies like this are just oversee mechanics for the functions of the company, pretty much. their accountability mechanics. They oversee departments, and every board member has a certain amount of departments that they must oversee, and they're the highest technical authority, even though CEOs can also have even more power technically than boards in some situations. It's a huge depends. And the boards are usually the ones that also represent things to the shareholders and whatnot. But the board has absolutely no say, no power in what Sony decides to do with Bungie.
Votes. But speaking to IGN under condition of anonymity, multiple current and former Bungie employees described a department meeting that took place shortly after the layoffs, in which leaders hinted that this shared power may not last forever. Sony did not respond to IGN's request for comment on this piece. Bungie declined to comment. Declaration of dependence. While the exact details of Sony's deal to acquire Bungie remain unknown to the public or employees, sources say they were told by leaders that the current split board structure is contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. If Bungie falls short of its revenue goals by too great an amount, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control.
That seems questionable. Again, Sony owns Bungie. They don't need... Now, there is a chance that this is real, by the way. But, I mean, Sony would never agree with this for something as stupid as this unless Sony was the one that decides, you know, how much money Bungie needs to make. Dude, Sony would have never agreed to actual seriously something like this if they did not have the full ability to just do whatever they please at the end, no matter what. Bruh.
Of the company. And with Destiny 2 expansion, the final shape delayed into the next fiscal year, and Bungie still investing heavily on Marathon, many employees understand that Bungie is struggling to meet the necessary targets to keep its last vestige of freedom. Such a takeover wouldn't necessarily be shocking given its 2022 acquisition, but it would nevertheless be a stunning development for a company that has historically prided itself on its independence. Who signed this deal? I mean, obviously Bungie signed this deal, but okay, hold up.
If you're a publicly traded company, there's no such thing as not signing this deal, technically. Admittedly, this is how you get a deal in this situation. This is probably what Sony actually did win for, if I think about it for a minute. But chances are, Sony, Sony came to the biggest shareholders that were already in Bungie and said, "Hey, we're gonna hostilely take you over unless we do this, and we still kind of own you, but you get your independence moment right here by doing X." And then they agreed because they would still, no matter what, be taken over by Sony. I'm not sure. I need to know the details here. But again, there's no such thing as Sony owns you, but you get free reins over whatever you do. That's not happening ever.
This explains everything. This explains exactly why there are so many things inside of Destiny that are trying to over-monetize. The dungeon keys, right? The synth weave, the $20 skins, the starter pack. Dude, Bungie is trying to make sure they meet these revenue goals because
if you ask me who's gonna take better care of Destiny, Bungie, a bunch of failure losers who don't understand nor care what the player base wants, or Sony, a literal company that creates weapons of mass destruction to delete children's Minecraft avatars? I'm gonna go with Sony. I'm actually gonna go with Sony, yeah.
They done signed the deal with the devil, and I'm not saying Sony is the devil, but they done signed a deal that if they were to fall below...
I don't know, Chief. If you don't think Sony's the devil, you clearly don't know enough about Sony.
...revenue goals, and if they were projecting those revenue goals based on what they were doing...
By the way, full disclosure, I do own Sony stock.
Pre-Witch Queen, then obviously those numbers are greatly inflated. It's so bad to even use those numbers too, because you had COVID. Everybody was chilling at home. Beyond Light did really good. Witch Queen did really good. I mean, people were still in lockdown. So you had a lot of people that had stimmies that weren't working at the time. Had no fault of theirs, just COVID, is shut down. But to think that that was going to be the same forever, I think that the revenue goes, especially considering that Bungie's announced that they are below or 45% below projected revenue. Those numbers were astronomical. The question is how low does it need to go before Sony takes over? It was with this threat looming that Bungie leadership, not Sony.
Typically, if you say 40% below and there's some kind of goal of revenue, they already can't reach it. It's over. It's just over.
According to Parsons, made the choice to lay off roughly 100 employees last month. The cost cutting at Bungie isn't limited to just personnel. Multiple current employees confirmed to IGN that the company has implemented numerous other cost-cutting measures recently, including a studio-wide hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual, delaying its week-long company Pentalon event to next December, and reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes from monthly to quarterly. Bungie is also pausing or fully re-ending benefits like annual employee compensation adjustment to meet market rates, its new hire lunch program, employee donation matching, its peer recognition program, and gift cards for employee birthdays. And yearly studio performance bonuses this year will only be the contractually obligated 80% minimum, after being above 100% for good performance several previous years running. Along with the recent layoffs, this has resulted in a massive decay in morale within the company, according to IGN sources, one of whom told us that the mood within the studio has been soul crushing over the last month. And it doesn't sound like management is making any significant efforts towards improving the atmosphere either. According to those still with the company,
I mean, they can't, but that's okay.
Employee frustration and sadness in the days and weeks following the layoffs was met with a surprising amount of indifference or even outright flippancy or hostility from management. Yeah, because they're probably like, can y'all quit bringing up the people we laid off? I mean, I get it.
No. The reason that's happening is very human. Because management doesn't know that they're going to stay. The reality is, again, if you're getting taken over, the management is getting replaced. That's just how it goes. All the management's positions probably, well, at least most of them, are going to be replaced. Because management is the one that makes these decisions. And they made the decisions that made the company bad in the first place. So, why would you ever, as Sony, care to keep these people at management? So management obviously doesn't care about the rank and file employees because they have bigger problems to worry about themselves.
We told you last week we were sad. All right? Now this week, we're tired of you talking about it. Several people we spoke to told us that leaders had reiterated across multiple meetings that they couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be more layoffs, with two specifically recalling Chief People Officer Holly Barpakovi outright stating that the layoffs were a lever the company would pull again. Oh, wow, that really sets the tone, man, right? You imagine being in that meeting? You show up, you're like, hey, I'm really upset about everybody being laid off right now.
But it's happening again?
Well, you know, I am too. But here's the thing. You could have it again. Holly, you're really putting everybody on edge. You know, I'm just saying. We know we need Final Shape to do well once we're...
I don't know how honestly stupid you need to be to not know that it's gonna happen again. That the first wave of layoffs is literally people who are complete garbage. Because, you know, Sony probably... not Sony, but Bungie probably has their fucking KPIs and stuff, right? Sony probably literally let go of the people who scored my negative score in their KPIs, which I don't think is even possible.
Source told IGN, and the feeling of the studio is that if it doesn't, we're definitely looking at more layoffs. Others said that they were rebuffed repeatedly and discouraged from even discussing the layoffs whenever they tried to ask questions. Employees in one department recalled a post-layoff Q&A session where a department head was asked if leadership taking salary cuts to prevent layoffs had been considered, only to respond that Bungie was not that type of company. What?
What? Yeah. What?
What's more, as sources we spoke to pointed out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion support efforts. Several people we spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General...
Spearheaded employee inclusion efforts? Yeah, that sounds like someone who needs to be fired because they don't do anything productive. That's true. But I'm not being even ironic. Spearheaded employee inclusions? Yeah, that sounds like a waste of oxygen.
Counsel Don McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning in a historic suit against a player who harassed a Bungie developer. Others laid off included a noticeable number of members of Bungie's DE&I clubs, including co-heads of Pride at Bungie, as well as women at Bungie and accessibility at Bungie. When combined with other recent resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears that these clubs might be shut down. I'm going to talk about it in a second. While researching this article, IGN noted that the public news article announcing...
By the way, all of this is good. Why do you have Pride at Bungie? It sounds stupid, useless, and oppressive. Why do you have women at Bungie? Dude, women in workplaces are a treasure that everyone respects and loves because they probably look hot in pencil skirts. There's no point to giving them already more power. Accessibility at Bungie. I don't even know what this means, but it's probably as bad as Pride at Bungie. Good! Good, Sony! Good!
Women at Bungie and accessibility at Bungie on his official blog were no longer accessible on the Bungie website, though it's unclear exactly when or why this happened, or if it's just an unintentional recurring bug with the blog. That sucks, dude. That sucks. It really does. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. You know, I think, you know, I don't know what the financial cut would be from cutting those programs, but it seems like Bungie is going there and just slashing down everything to the point where it's just like, okay, let's just...
like, what's the point of this? I don't know. What was the point of Elon Musk firing 90% of the Twitter staff? And the site was working better than ever. I don't know. What was the point of that? I don't know. There was probably a good point for it. Again, all of this seems completely useless from a financial standpoint. Like, why does this exist? You're probably not getting ESG money from this garbage. You probably don't even need to do this to get ESG score. So, why have it? It sounds like something that could just create stress and shit.
Just worry about keeping the lights on for the game, right? One thing that I'm wondering if this article is going to mention is they actually cut down the security team substantially. That's why if you're playing Trials of Osiris and you're noticing more cheaters, there's a reason for that. I'm angry, I'm upset. This isn't what I came here to do, one person said. It feels like many higher-ups aren't listening to the data and are like, we just need to win our fans back. They still like us. No, they don't. We got rid of some of our most knowledgeable, beloved folks who have been here for 20 plus years. Every day I walk in a...
Knowledgeable, beloved folks? I mean, I don't believe you, but that's okay. Again, if these people were knowledgeable, then Sony would not have bought Disney because it would be doing good. That's the simple truth. If these people were good, knowledgeable, and all the other buzzwords, this wouldn't have happened. But it did. Why? Because these people are not knowledgeable. They're actually probably bad at their jobs.
Afraid that I or my friends are next. No one is safe. Bungie eroding. Another anxiety sources discussed with us was that many of the reductions made at Bungie recently were part of a broader move toward outsourcing. Multiple individuals across various departments told us that they've heard discussions within their teams of plans to increase outsourcing both before and in the wake of the layoffs. One team where those discussions have already become a reality is in the quality assurance. While outsourcing QA is extremely common practice industry-wide, Bungie historically has also enlisted an army of in-house embedded QA testers working within individual teams. It's a setup studio has prided itself on for years now, but QA...
I have no idea if Destiny's QA is good or not.
Sources within the studio are now afraid that that strategy is on its way out. We previously reported that Bungie's QA team saw a rash of mysterious departures in the months before the layoffs, and also noted a team-wide culture shift.
Yeah, that's them just trying to save money at the end, because QA teams are useless. Okay, don't get me wrong. QA is good, but at the same time, QA is like, okay, well, this needs to change. Yeah, sure, buddy. Bam! Gets released. Nothing changes because it's not that important. That's how it works.
Shift toward a general pool of testers consisting of both in-house and outsourced individuals. Former and current QA department members at Bungie tell us that in the last year, the team has seen increasing workloads and responsibilities, with more and more disciplinary actions taken for seeming...
Okay, let me explain how bad QA teams are. Do you know Bethesda has QA? Yeah. I also don't believe that.
Minor infractions. They also perceive growing hostility from team and company leadership, including a meeting in which QA was said to be referred to by leaders as non-developers. In total, sources tell us that over 10% of Bungie's internal QA department was either fired or laid off between early October and early November, including both the reported layoffs and the departures leading up to them. In a year that will go down in gaming history due to the sheer number of layoffs and studio closures, Bungie's situation nonetheless stands out, and not for good reasons. It's a well-known, long-standing studio that, despite historic cultural problems, had managed to cultivate an increasingly positive community of fans around a beloved game while improving its own internal culture by gradual degrees.
I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure people were just have been historically mostly pissed about Destiny and the incompetency surrounding that game, honestly. And I don't care about internal culture. What do you mean internal culture? Are you gonna make like a Christmas fair or something like that? Or why do I need to care about that? Doesn't sound like, dude. Okay. A gender reveal party at Bungie is not gonna make the game better, believe it or not. It's probably gonna make it worse, in fact. So I don't care about internal culture.
But in the wake of an acquisition that shocked many Bungie employees we spoke to, and which seemed out of character with the studio's independent streak, it feels to many like that's all falling apart. Beloved colleagues have been laid off, benefits are vanishing, and many feel the more people-oriented, as one source put it, culture of recent years is being torn to pieces by the very Bungie leaders that touted it for so long. And seemingly also, those same leaders can retain a vestige of control over a company that's already been sold away anyway. Folks still there are very much feeling us versus them between leadership and workers, one person said. That trust has been eroded. Given the recent actions, the question of whether or not Sony will finally manage to swallow Bungie whole in a few months seems less and less important than the question of what Bungie's current management would do to lead the company forward today. The reality is this: Bungie made a terrible deal with Sony. There is a possibility that Sony is going to swallow Bungie. And it's not because Sony is evil.
Good.
I mean, they paid a lot of money. But like anything, any investment, if you pay that much money for it, if you see it failing, you're going to come in there and take over. And Sony is probably completely fine with letting Bungie do their thing. And
again, the misconception is here that, you know, they bought Bungie because Bungie was doing good. No, Bungie was doing horribly in their opinion. That's why they bought it. So obviously they're gonna come in there and, you know, do whatever. I'm interested in the deal though, because what kind of magic? That's probably, I'm really interested in that. If they have some kind of percent that they need to keep, and about the board and whatnot, because that sounds stupid and useless. Why would Sony agree to that? Unless it was something that Bungie completely screwed up because of their ineptitude and Sony is not taking full advantage of. There must be some trick. There must be some absolute trick. Like, again, the easiest trick in this situation is, well, Bungie needs to get an X amount of money in a quarter or a year, or otherwise Sony takes it over. But Sony is the one who decides it, and, you know, they can all at any given moment just increase the number how much ever they want, and Bungie can't do anything about it. It should be something of that level of absolute insanity, because there's no other way. Sony is too big and powerful and smart to get taken over by Bungie or get played by them.
Bungie, as long as Bungie does well, but if Bungie suffers, and more specifically, if the final shape flops, then yeah, I think Sony's probably going to take over, and then we're going to see a completely different Bungie. Because notice,
I would like that.
What was said in the article, that as soon as Sony takes over, that's it for the board, or at least the current board. Okay, it almost sounds like they would come in and wipe the board out, restructure the way they want to structure it, and which would in turn mean a completely different Bungie. Couple questions that come into mind. What were the revenue goals that Bungie was supposed to hit? I don't know what that is. Again, it's not like they're having to file a 10K. And
I mean, you have. I'm pretty sure Bungie yearly, you know, whatever's are available online as every other big company, because they're a publicly traded company, which means they have to have their yearly everything online. So, you know, it's probably not hard to see, but I don't think that's interesting.
See those numbers. Only Sony does and Bungie does. And then whatever other external auditors they may have. I'm curious.
What do you mean? Wait. Bungie stock. Does Bungie have stock? Bungie is different than the normal corporation thing Microsoft. They're not a publicly traded Oh, that explains it. Okay. Huh. Wow. I thought they're publicly traded. I did not know this. Okay, in that case, yeah, no one knows their inner workings but Bungie themselves. Okay, I thought Bungie's a publicly traded company. Wait. So you're telling me Bungie was part of the Blizzard because they got bought out by Blizzard through stock, and then the founders of Bungie, the people working there, bought it away from Blizzard and made it into a privately owned company? Well, deconverted it from a public company to a privately held enterprise? That's crazy. That's crazy. Wow. Okay.
So I am curious to see what that revenue.
Well, this explains the situation with the board, though. Yeah, this very much explains the situation with the board. Yeah, now everything seems possible. Wow. But yeah, Sony's gonna win at the end. Sony is absolutely winning at the end.
New goal is, and you know how much of a percentage growth they had on it since essentially Shadowkeep, right? Shadowkeep into Beyond Light into Witch Queen. Did they project some astronomical numbers in regards to revenue growth? I would think they did. And so right now they obviously are missing those revenue projections, and then of course doing a bunch of cost cutting, right, to keep not necessarily revenue high but net profit high, right? With that being said, though, when the shit hits the fan with every company out there, all the extra programs that those companies have, they do go out the window, unfortunately. I hate it. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's normally the first things that gets the axe. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all have different philosophies on, you know, whatever inclusion clubs there are. I don't think it matters, man. I mean, it's just different clubs. If you join a club within a company and you feel more at home.
Dude, a company is where you work, not daycare. Okay? You don't need a club, you don't need a support group, you don't need this, you don't need that. That's it. What the hell?
And it somehow allows you to be better at your job, then that's great. That's a worthy investment by the company. But right now, Bungie is in slash everything down to the bone and just worry about getting the game out.
By the way, the reason why slashing it down to the bone doesn't work, because Bungie will understand. If they do it, people are going to leave. They're going to see a drop in player activity, average player numbers or whatever, and they're going to say, well, we can just agree to the Sony takeover now, or we can switch up the monetization until there's nothing left of the player base to begin with. So yeah, that's the thing. And Sony probably also has, you know, part that, you know, matters about the player base number, that they can't let it fall below a certain amount, because that would... Again, their failures, they currently say that there's a failure in revenue, but there can be multiple other failures in this case also. Like, for example, player attention and whatnot. Anyway, I think that's honestly it. That was Utz the Cross. Good times. Destiny. What a wild time to be alive. I love it. Anyway, this is Quizzer said. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. But man, seriously, Bungie wasn't a publicly traded company? But Blizzard bought them. How did that work in the first place? Or maybe that's not true. I didn't pay a lot of attention, honestly, about that at the start when that happened. But I don't even know, man. Anyway, bye-bye.